want to start by thanking the mayor, staff, residents, community groups, activists for the conversation over 6+ months now. And it's one that we've heard many perspectives on a obviously sensitive and sometimes complex discussion. And I want to start by sharing our experience in Scarborough Southwest. I'll share a map of my ward that shows how well shelters have been working in our ward. When I was in my previous role as trustee, we had consultations on Ontario's first Indigenous Women's Healing Lodge for recently incarcerated Indigenous women, one that I supported, located right here, and we're almost nearing completion, Ontario's first. Over here, we've got an 80-bed men's shelter that early in my first term as trustee, myself and my predecessor had supported given the need, and works incredibly well, as to Councillor Sachs's points of having good neighbors, good relationships, and looking at the operation. Over here, we've got a youth shelter, a mixed gender shelter here, and another youth shelter over here. We've got 5 in total, and over here, I forgot to note, we've got 11 Macy, which is, though not a shelter in terms, is high, high support needs, transitional. So we've got a lot of experience, and I think we've got the most shelters in suburban wards. And it's from this experience that we're drawing upon some of the concerns my community has shared with me. And part of the instrumental intrinsic value and success criteria of all these sites, as you can see, all on abutting major arteries. The men's shelter on Kingston Road, St. Clair Avenue, Kennedy Road, Warden Avenue, Kingston Road, and Danforth Avenue. So it's in this context that some of the concerns my community has raised with me and council is to look at how we create success. Apart from abutting a major artery, they're close to high-order transit, healthcare amenities and services, commercial retail options, all critical aspects of making a shelter work, and why, in my year and a half as councillor and previously 8 years as trustee, really never had issues with any of them. Of course, there are some challenges with Lev and Macy and settling them in, but we had great partnerships. So I share this because the context to the Gerrard is different, and why it's incumbent on me as the councillor to share the concerns of the community that, though it's on Gerrard for the most part is a major street, this site is literally where Gerrard ends and becomes Clonmore, a very residential neighborhood that is predominantly a lot of young families and seniors. So the part of the concern about success and why I'll be bringing a member motion later to commit to finding a site within our ward that's on a major artery, that's similar to all the successful shelters in my ward, I think is critical as we build out this multi-year strategy to create shelters, some of which will be in the suburban wards, which I'll quickly add, there are many wards without any shelters. So this is imperative that we bring an approach where we have successful criteria in suburban locations that should be pursued, as I'll be bringing in a member motion to work with my office to look at appropriate sites. And that is at the heart of the concern with this particular location and why I won't be supporting this particular location.
Councillor Candeval.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, staff, for all the support and work you've provided on this sensitive and important file. To pick up on Councillor Pasternak's question, and given that each ward and each site is a unique and its own site and has different impacts and variations, do you think in reflection there's value perhaps when we look at delegated authority, that staff perhaps shortlist a couple of sites to bring towards the councillor for kind of reflection, given the intimate knowledge of the locality.
You know, bringing these 6 sites forward, we've looked at through our colleagues in real estate over 100 different locations across the city. It's difficult at times to cite a property that's large enough to host a shelter, but we very much now want to have those conversations with councillors to determine, now that we've cited the shelter, what is the program model going to look like? How is this program going to operate in the best way in the location we've cited?
My understanding, as staff in real estate did the diligence on site selection, they were looking at properties that were already listed. In many cases, there are appropriate and adequate sites that would work really well, but not on the market. In reflection, is that a consideration, you think, as we unroll our shelter strategy, that we look at sites that may not be on the market but may have to be cold called or being put in touch directly? What are your reflections on that idea?
To you, Madam Speaker, it's Pat Matozo from Real Estate Councillor. We work with many brokers across the city to identify as many sites as possible. Then we look at the site selection process to determine which site is best. So reflecting, if there are sites off market, then we try to work as best we can with brokers to identify those sites.
So is that going forward as we unroll the shelter strategy, and this obviously will inevitably be sensitive issues, in other words, as this progresses, and we're looking to improve upon this experience with this batch, do you think there could be more work done in terms of citing sites that are not typically available or quote unquote on the market?
To you, Madam Speaker, and thanks for the question, Councillor. Absolutely. We could look at different ways of approaching the market to solicit locations that may be private or not on the market. But thanks for that. We could look at that.
I would recommend that, given I think councillors have, I guess in some cases, relationships, but experience and knowledge of certain sites that staff may not be attuned to. Thank you.